The season 1 finale of Percy Jackson is here, so let's talk about it. In this video, as I've been doing, I'm going to go through the episode, point out Easter eggs and hidden details, review it, and then at the end, I'll give you my thoughts and rate it out of 10 and see how it compares to the other episodes that we've gotten so far. Now, fair warning, there will be spoilers for the entirety of season 1, so watch at your own risk. Also, if you enjoy this video, hit that like button. It will greatly help the channel with the algorithm, and if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and you can also follow me on all of my other social medias, all of which are linked down below, and all of which house similar content that I make here on this channel. Now that I've said that, let's get into it. This episode is called The Prophecy Comes True, which is the same name chapter 22 of the book has. Also, both are the final episode / chapter in the show / book. The episode starts where the last episode left off, which is Percy getting ready to battle Ares. But we get a voiceover from Luke first.
You didn't ask to be a half-blood, but you are one. That makes you part of something bigger than yourself.
And this voiceover leads to a flashback of Luke teaching Percy how to sword fight. I'm glad that they added this, because we really didn't see how Percy got his skill with a sword. So adding this fills in the missing gap I felt the show sort of left out. Also, that transition back to the present, going from Luke's sword to Percy's, was such a nice touch. That was so well done. Percy calls Ares out, saying that Kronos got him through his dreams, but Ares says that gods don't dream.
Gods don't dream, little man.
Which we later find out from Poseidon is a lie.
Of course we dream.
We then see the thing I and many other fans have been waiting for since it was first announced that the show is coming out. Percy Jackson versus Ares, the god of war. I love that Percy gets pretty messed up in the beginning of the fight, but then we see his true power when he's kicked into the water. Now let me set this straight. I hate the movies, but that scene where Percy makes all the water come around him was epic. And this is the show's version of that, but they actually made it book accurate. This is such an amazingly well done scene, and they end the fight with Percy cutting Ares in the same place where he cut him in the book. Ares of course bleeds golden ichor, the blood of the gods, which I got so excited for when I first saw it on screen. Also, the fact that Percy beat a literal god, and not just any god, the god of war, on his first quest is insane. That really shows you how powerful this kid is.
And you thought you were just a kid.
Ares is obviously pissed that he lost, and he says that Percy will have an enemy for life.
Want to know what you really won today? An enemy for life.
I'm disappointed though that they didn't add him saying he was going to curse his sword Riptide, which came to fruition in the 3rd book during a crucial fight. But to avoid spoilers, I'm going to leave it at that. Ares goes into his true godly form, or the divine form, which if you look at, it will kill you.
Don't look at his true form!
The Helm of Darkness looks awesome in my opinion, and I love how the patterns on it match Zeus's lightning bolts. Obviously, unlike in the book, this fight did not happen in front of a whole media circus, which is a change that I'm actually alright with. I'm happy that it was just the 4 of them, that being Percy, Annabeth, Grover, and Ares. It felt more private, and it made it feel more epic in some ways. Where they are also happens to be where the beach house Percy and his mother always went to was, which we saw for the first time in episode 1, and this is not where that fight took place in the novel. We hear on the radio that there was violent seismic activity, which might have been caused by what Percy did with the water. And the radio also says that it was caused by solar flares.
Are typically caused by solar flares.
This mention of solar flares is actually really cool because it references a line from the 5th book. There, Hermes told Percy that mortals would put everything that happened down to solar flares because they'll believe anything but the truth. In the beach house, you can see binoculars on the windowsill looking out to the sea, which is a nice detail that might hint to the fact that Sally sometimes looks out there for the man she loves, the god of the sea. On the fridge, you can see a drawing that says summer, which might have been made by Percy and that Sally hung up. You can also see a sticker that says golf, which if I had to guess, is from a mini golf game that Percy and Sally probably played. On top of that, there's also a few menus, one for Mexican food and one for seafood, as well as a 30% off coupon if you look really closely, which makes sense because Sally doesn't have a lot of money. She would of course want to use a coupon for 30% off. Percy meets with Alecto in the house, who last we saw had been turned to stone by Percy and smashed to the ground, so I guess she's back from the dead. We find out that the whole time, Alecto was actually going after the Helm of Darkness for Hades, which they thought that Percy had stolen, making her much less bad in the eyes of Percy and also in the audience. Percy mentions that the last war on Olympus led to World War II.
Before we set off, Chiron told me the last war on Olympus kicked off World War II down here.
This is a cool detail because in the book, it discussed how the Nazis were the children of Hades and those fighting the Nazis were the children of Zeus and Poseidon. Annabeth giving Percy her necklace was a nice moment, especially because it has her father's ring on it as well. When we get to this shot of the Empire State Building, you can see lightning striking in the clouds over here, which is a great detail that shows Zeus's anger up in Olympus. I love the power move of Percy just putting the bolt down and saying he didn't have an appointment.
I'm here to see Zeus. I don't have an appointment.
In the book, both of these things were prompted by the security guard asking if he had an appointment, and when Percy said no, he showed him the bolt. Having Percy just walk in and immediately do those things makes him so badass in my eyes. The elevator numbers up on Olympus are written in ancient Greek, and this is of course the second time we've seen this elevator this season, as we saw Hermes on it at the end of episode 3. There though, we did not see Olympus, we just saw the light coming in, so actually getting to see it this time around got me so hype, and it looks incredible. The buildings and stairways are so intricate and thought out, and it really does feel like Greek and Roman times and feels so grand. If you zoom in, you can see some ghost-like people here, as well as another ghost-like creature with horns down here. We then cut back to the flashback between Percy and Luke, and they have a really interesting conversation about the relationship between gods and demigods.
The gods are all powerful, but they have to play by the rules.
Yes.
And they create demigods so we can break the rules for them.
Yes.
But if we can break rules and they can't, shouldn't they be just as afraid of us as we are of them?
In this conversation, we get a drop that Annabeth is scared of spiders.
Annabeth is terrified of spiders.
Which I did not expect to get in this conversation. It kind of took me aback. In the book, we found out that she didn't like spiders at Waterland when they were attacked by a bunch of mechanical spiders. But obviously the show cut that, instead having that throne scene. I am glad that they added this detail, but it was done in a weird way, and it kind of goes back to that whole problem that I think the show has of show don't tell. Here, they're once again telling. It is important that it's mentioned though, because Annabeth's fear of spiders goes back to her mother's interaction with Arachne. In a fit of rage, Athena turned Arachne into a spider, and from then on, all kids of Athena were afraid of spiders because they thought each one could be Arachne coming to take revenge. And this gets even deeper, as you can see from the cover of the third book in the sequel series, The Heroes of Olympus. But again, I'm going to leave it at that to avoid spoilers. Going back to the original spider line that Luke said, it actually fits really well with this flashback, as we get a metaphor comparing how Annabeth reacts to spiders and how the gods react to demigods.
She's a lot bigger than they are. So what do you think happens when she comes across one? Two things you never want to be are small and scary at the same time. Things that are small and scary get squished.
Seeing Percy walk through Olympus is an incredible shot. But my god, that is a long way to go. How long did it take him to get up there? When Percy does eventually make it, Lord knows how long that took. We make it to the Hall of the Gods. And sadly, I was disappointed that each throne was pretty much the same. In the book, each throne was designed to fit the god or goddess that sat in it. For example, Poseidon's was basically a chair that would be on a fishing boat, complete with a place to put a fishing pole, but instead of the pole there, he had his trident. I guess it does look more aesthetically pleasing the way the show did it though. One thing they got right was that they have all 12 thrones, one for each of the Olympian gods. We then get back to the change of how Percy failed his quest running out of time, which did not happen in the novel. In the book, Percy finished his quest, and personally, I'm not a fan of this change. I don't know why they changed it, I don't know why they felt the need to make Percy fail, but it's just not good. I thought they would at least have something that would explain it, but no, there's nothing. What's the point of it? Why have Percy fail? Zeus mentions that he knows where Kronos is.
I know where Kronos is. I put him there.
And what he's referring to is the pit of Tartarus that we saw in the underworld. Zeus saved his siblings by cutting his father up into bits and banished and threw those bits down to Tartarus. I love how you hear a lightning strike when Zeus gets angry and yells.
Boy!
Lance Reddick did an amazing job as Zeus, and it really was sad to hear about his passing. Recasting him will be a real challenge because he did a great job. When the scene first started, I was like, where the heck is Poseidon? Because he was there in the book, but I love the way the show went about this as Poseidon comes in and saves Percy at the last second. This is such a great moment and the perfect way for Percy to meet his father. And honestly, I don't say this often, but I think it trumps how the book did it. The bolt also looks amazing when it's fully charged up. I love the blue glow it adds to the shot, almost like a lightsaber. Poseidon surrenders the war to spare Percy.
I surrender.
And we get a really interesting back and forth between the two brothers.
Just spare my son.
Your forbidden son, who should have never been born.
The same as your Thalia.
Thalia is of course the daughter of Zeus, and who Luke and Annabeth arrived at camp with. She sacrificed herself to save Luke, Annabeth, and Grover, and Zeus spared his daughter by turning her into a tree, and that tree now puts a defense around Camp Half-Blood. Zeus and Poseidon then speak in ancient Greek, and having them do that was such a great touch. Zeus mentions Athena,
I'll have Athena set a meeting.
and Athena is of course the goddess mother of Annabeth. The long silence between Percy and Poseidon as they just look at each other was a great touch, and I love the first line that Poseidon says to Percy.
Obedience doesn't come naturally to you, does it?
No.
I must take some of the blame, I suppose. The sea does not like to be restrained.
We also get even more of an extension of Sally Jackson's character arc as we find out that she taught Percy ancient Greek.
Your mother taught you ancient Greek.
Percy then asks Poseidon if he ever dreamed about his mother.
Do you ever dream about Mom?
And though Poseidon does not answer, his response tells us all we need to know. This is especially true when he shows the fourth pearl that Grover had lost, which would have saved Sally. Poseidon sends Percy to Half-Blood Hill, and the first thing that Percy sees is the tree that is of course Thalia, who Poseidon just mentioned. Percy gets a great welcome back to camp and a great hug from Annabeth. They still of course think that Clarice is the lightning thief, and Luke does all he can to make sure he gets Percy alone. This scene in the woods is vastly different than the book, as Percy is actually the one to figure out that Luke is the lightning thief, which was not the case in the novel.
Because you knew that Clarice didn't steal the bolt. You did.
I like this a lot because as I talked about in my video for last week's episode, they took away a few smart moments from Percy, so having him figure everything out here sort of makes up for that in my eyes because clearly he's very smart. The show also made another change as Luke tries to recruit Percy, whereas in the book he did not do this. He took him in the woods with the intention of assassinating Percy with a poisonous scorpion. Luke also pulls out his sword Backbiter, which is also very different from the book. It has this new power to make ripples into the air to open secret doors, which is a power it did not have in the novel.
Backbiter can open secret doors. We can stay on the run as long as it takes.
I also wish they mentioned that Kronos gave this sword to Luke as sort of a bribery, and I also wish that they mentioned that it's only half celestial bronze, so that one half can kill gods and monsters, and the other half can kill mortals as well. Another big difference with this scene is that Percy and Luke actually fight each other. And then Annabeth comes in to save Percy, having heard everything.
I heard everything.
She also holds the very knife that Luke gave her, pointed straight at Luke himself, and this knife is super important. But again, I won't say anything because, again, spoilers. Luke of course escapes through that portal that Backbiter made, and I'm not really sure how I feel about this sword's new power. I'll get back to you. The next day, Percy has a bead added to his necklace because he finished his first summer. Each bead represents a summer you spent at Camp Half-Blood, and each one has a different picture on it that defined that year. Just like in the book, this summer's is a black bead, and on it is a turquoise trident, which you can sort of see here, though I wish they showed it more closely. We get another mention of Dionysus calling Percy the wrong name, Peter Johnson, which he also did in episode 2, and really, it never gets old.
Percy?
Yes?
No, I mean, that's your name?
Yes.
Are you sure? Because I'm 90% sure it's Peter.
Percy.
As Percy says his name proudly, the shot is perfectly aligned with the trident behind him, which is so well done. We get another scene with Thalia's tree as Annabeth mourns the loss of her friend. We also find out that Annabeth is going home to see her dad.
You going home to see your dad?
And this is the first time she's leaving camp to go home since she got there. She too now has the black bead for that summer, along with 5 other ones, which shows you how long she's been away from home and her father, making this move to go home even more meaningful. She also calls Percy Seaweed Brain,
It's a tree, seaweed brain.
the classic nickname Annabeth gives Percy in the book. She said this for the first time back in episode 5, and let me tell you, it will not be the last time you hear this. Expect to hear it a lot. Grover also gets his searcher's license to find Pan, which has always been his dream, and I love that they made it a flower. Grover mentions that he's going to check the seas for Pan.
No one's ever bothered to check the seas.
Which of course leads us to the next novel in the series and what season 2 is going to be based on, the Sea of Monsters. We then go to a dream sequence where Percy actually faces Kronos up close, who all season we had seen only from afar. He looks absolutely terrifying. They did an amazing job with Kronos in his costume. Kronos mentions that Percy's survival is the key to his return.
Your survival is the key to my return.
This refers to the Great Prophecy, and I'm going to talk about it because I think it's important. But, spoilers, if you don't want to know what the prophecy is, skip to whatever time is on the screen. The Great Prophecy says that a forbidden child, meaning a child born from the big three, Zeus, Poseidon, or Hades, would make a decision to either save or destroy Olympus. And this is why Kronos is counting on Percy, because if he makes the choice that will destroy Olympus, it gives Kronos the freedom to take over. Percy is then woken up by Sally, who says he's about to start 7th grade. I love how Percy calls Kronos his grandpa.
Do you have another nightmare?
Grandpa.
Don't call him that.
And this is funny because it's actually true. Kronos had his son Poseidon, and Poseidon had his son Percy, making Kronos Percy's grandfather. We get a nice Sally and Percy moment, and her being back tells us that Hades held up his end of the deal, returning Sally back to the mortal world. Sally then makes Percy blue pancakes with blueberries and a blue drink, which is a great Easter egg. I mentioned this in my video for the first episode, but I'm gonna go over it again because I just love it. Explaining the blue food, one day Sally got into a fight with Gabe, who said that blue food didn't exist. So from then on, Sally got and made all the food she could think of that was blue just to spite Gabe. I love the final voiceover they gave to Percy. It was such a fitting ending.
If you ever feel like you don't fit, like the world doesn't make sense, then you might be a part of our world. So don't give up, because we might need you for the fight ahead.
I also love the remembrance to Lance Reddick, the actor for Zeus. Rest in peace. In the post-credits scene, we get a final moment with Gabe, which starts off absolutely hilariously.
You call yourself a lawyer? This is outrageous. My wife is divorcing me, and on top of that, I gotta pay you too? How is that fair?
We then see him get turned to stone just like in the book, courtesy of Medusa's head. In the next novel, The Sea of Monsters, it actually says that Sally made money selling his statue as art, which is also really funny, and I hope that they mention that in season 2. Now my thoughts on the episode and my rating out of 10. I was worried that this episode would be rushed, but it actually wasn't at all in my opinion. I really loved this episode, and I thought it was a great wrap up to season 1. The fight against Ares was everything I had hoped it would be, and I love how it aligned with the flashbacks with Luke. Olympus is absolutely incredible. I'm so happy with the design that they went with. It's everything I imagined. Poseidon saving Percy was a great change from book to show, and their conversation was perfectly handled. Obviously, the Luke and Percy confrontation is very different, but I think it fits the format of being on screen much better. When I honestly think about it, it might have been sort of boring if a scorpion just came out and bit Percy, especially compared to the awesome action that we got instead. The back and forth we got between Kronos and Percy was really exhilarating and dropped a lot of cool hints for the future. Also, I've thought about it and I've decided I do not like the new edition with Backbiter. I feel as though its power to make these portals makes the weapon and Luke himself a bit overpowered. What would stop him from just cutting a portal open to march an army into camp when the time comes? Other than that though, I don't really have any complaints. This episode was pretty much perfect. So that now brings me to my rating out of 10. I said it was pretty much perfect, so I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. Yeah, it was my favorite episode in the season for sure. It was the perfect wrap up for season 1. It hit every point that I wanted it to hit, and it left me feeling very satisfied. Let me know what you thought though. Give me your rating out of 10 and just give me your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm excited to read what you guys have to say. I'm going to be making all sorts of Percy Jackson content moving forward, so if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any of the videos. That's all I have for you guys today though, so I will see you in the next video.